So, our next session is called Beyond Handshakes, the Power of Networking and Meaningful Partnerships. We have a stellar lineup for this discussion. I would like to now call upon stage Pallavi Hirwani, CEO and co founder GetWork, Aabha Bakaya, founder Ladies Who Lead, Kriti Gupta, VP Institutional Marketing, Cactus Communication, Rhea Mazumdar Singhal, founder Ecoware, and this session would be moderated by Naina Sood, Senior Correspondent, Moneycontrol. Let's hear their insights.
Hi everyone. I hope everybody enjoyed their tea break. It's an absolute pleasure to be moderating this stellar panel today. We have dynamic women achievers here. The moderator has already introduced the panel, but I'm going to go on and introduce it again. We have with us today Aabha Bakaya, veteran business journalist, producer, editor, turned entrepreneur who founded Ladies Who Lead. We also have Kriti Gupta, VP Institutional Marketing, Cactus Communication, and founder at DU Beat. I'm sure everybody knows about DU Beat. We've all read it during our, and still even beyond college days. We also have Pallavi Hirwani, co-founder and COO at GetWork. One thing about Pallavi, she's a passionate traveler. Pallavi, how many trips did you take in that 1 month or a year?
So I took 28 trips in 1.5 years, and I think that has been the most beautiful 1.5 years of my life.
Absolutely wonderful. We're going to take some, we'll get some takeaways on the networking during those trips and beyond. We also have with us Rhea Mazumdar Singhal, co-founder Ecoware. Rhea is also building Udeti Foundation and Sugarcrete in India. Ladies, thank you so much for taking our time and joining us here today. Okay, let's be honest, networking sort of personally it stresses me out. I mean, every time I go to some mixer, I'm constantly like looking at my watch that time kab khatam hoga, you know, it's a room full of men, founders and VCs, and at the same time I see my male colleagues just sitting there till midnight, discussing business, cracking stories, and the next day they're doing those breaking stories and I'm like, shit, I should have stayed at that mixer a bit longer. But at the same time, the thought process is that, one, there's a hesitation in introducing ourselves, which is the worst thing to say as a journalist. Aabha would agree. I mean, you can't be an introvert when you're in this profession. But also, you're hesitant that you don't want to come across as, you don't want to give a other impression. What is this girl doing at 12 o'clock at night, hanging out amidst male founders and VCs. So networking is, very different for men and women both. So Aabha, we'll start with you. What is your opinion on it? How do you see the networking difference between men and women, drawing from your personal experience?
So I think in the professional space, if we come to that, I think that's really where perhaps women are known or perceived to be a little bit more apprehensive. But I think it's really, one has to just constantly speak about it and share and communicate that there really is nothing to be apprehensive about. I think maybe women are a little bit more scared of judgment, and that makes them a little bit more reticent to be out there, speak their mind, even when they very often know all the right facts, they have the knowledge of any particular topic, but sometimes they're a little bit more reluctant to come forward with it. So it is true that they say that women need to put in that little bit of extra work to make sure that they have some clear talking points or some knowledge of a subject. But I think that would help anybody anyway, just to feel confident in any given situation. I don't necessarily think that all men are confident. I think many of them just get by because they're in situations where everyone's just kind of backslapping and being cool, and they just happen to get by in those situations. So I think the more that we talk about it and make it just familiar and normal for women to feel comfortable in professional networking, I think things will evolve. Right now, they're also restricted in, okay, the men go down for coffee breaks, the men go out drinking, the men do this, the men do that. And that's not going to change, which doesn't mean you have to start drinking, but you just have to find your own way to make sure you can also interact and engage with the others that you work with.
So, Aabha, is this a mindset difference between men and women, or is it a societal setup that is, bringing in that difference?
It's a bit of both, in the sense that it's not just India specific. These are global trends. For example, women are caregivers, so very often, for instance, post-work hours, they may want to go home instead of necessarily going out for a drink, right? So I think these are certain, trends or patterns that have been existing for some amount of time, but everyone can find a way about it. Like today, honestly, it's not just about like going out for a drink, right? In the sense you may not have anything in common with someone if you're also gluten-free and lactose intolerant and I don't know, have many allergies, and you may not even want to go for lunch with a colleague, right? So, but there are ways and means that you can find to ensure you're basically forming connections. Everyone wants to be able to form connections, and those meaningful relationships are what actually lead to growth down the line, because you're able to tap into them at different points of your career. So for that, whether it's just sitting down with someone for 10 minutes and catching up with them, or whether it's just, maybe going for some event with a colleague saying, hey, I'm going for this, why don't you come with me? But just carving out that time in your day or in your routine will bring you the same results.
Rhea, how has it been for you? Investors, founder is a different ballgame altogether. So how was it? What was the trick for you to break into those circles? During your initial days.
The concept in the organization that I founded as an entrepreneur in 2009 was based on sustainable packaging. It's called Ecoware. It's one of its kind in India and a brand new concept. So to break into the investor circles or any stakeholder circle really was not very easy, to say in the least, and came with its fair share of challenges. I think that we've had various conversations with investors, and because Ecoware was something completely new, and these conversations, I'm saying probably, we founded the company in 2009, we probably started having these conversations in 2015, 14, around then. And it was, you always heard all sorts of things. You're not thinking big enough, you're not bottom of the pyramid, where's your impact story, you're not a D2C brand. Basically, no one was willing to look at anything out of the box, right? I feel like investment and investors, there's a lot of herd mentality. And I think I remember at one point, my co-founder even created a app for Ecoware, because I think everything was on an app at some point. So, we even tried to go down that route and it didn't work. And then we just thought, okay, forget it. We're just going to carry on. We're going to get to where we want to get to. We'll get there a bit slower, but we'll get there. And I think that's really been our journey. We've had 2 grants from the Unreasonable Fellowship, which is based out in the US, and from Expo 2020 in Dubai. We had a investor show interest in us towards the end of 2019, and did the whole term sheet, due diligence. We were about to sign the SHA, and we went into lockdown around the 24th of March. And then they came back to us and said, oh no, we want to change our valuation. And that just did not sit right with us principally, and we thought, okay, forget it. And it was a huge risk, because we had at that point, a team of over 100 people. We were in lockdown. We had no idea how we were going to pay our bills or protect our people, but we just didn't want to, I think investment for us has always been more than just financial aid, right? It's about aligning yourself to the right people who are really going to help you achieve your vision mission for the organization. So at that point, we were just like, no, this is a lot. When you kind of add up the principal piece as well, then we were like, we walked away from it. So lots of different experiences. But yeah, I think it's, like I said, it's about aligning yourself to the right people. And it's more than just someone cutting you a check.
How was the networking part of it as a founder, when you used to go and pitch your company to investors and joining those mixers or networking event? How was your experience? Did you feel any difference?
Oh, it was very daunting. So my background, my corporate background is Pfizer. I studied pharmacology. I come from a brand marketing background. So I was great in building a business and getting product to market, etc. But when you were suddenly in this room of investors, my co-founder has a banking background and is a man. So it was a very they were just throwing acronyms at one another, and I felt completely lost in a lot of these boardroom discussions because I genuinely had no idea what was going on. And I think it was I was invited to join a fellowship program, sort of a small network called the Unreasonable Fellowship. And the beauty of networking and kind of adding on to what Aabha said is to find a safe space to share, right? I think I've always believed as an entrepreneur, there's so much you have to do, and you don't have answers to everything. And it was there where Daniel, who's the founder of the Unreasonable Fellowship, I was like, listen, I'm really lost. I don't know what EBITDA and CAT and all these other things. I was like, can someone just explain to me? And he sat down and he spent, a good hour and a half with me, and he said, this is it. This is now, before you go into every meeting, you're going to create a cheat sheet. And then I've been doing that ever since. So, and it's really been...
All of us are.
It changes, it just changes your presence in the room because you're far more confident, and you always have to remind yourself that no one knows your business better than you do, but it can be daunting, and sometimes you kind of waver, but that cheat sheet has started helping me for sure.
So Rhea, what you're saying is that if you're overwhelmed in networking systems like this, you should always be prepared and not be afraid to ask questions or admit that you don't know exactly what those acronyms are. Kriti, I'm going to go to you. How has been your experience starting from your Delhi University days when you started DUBeat till today as an established professionals? What was your networking trick, and how did that evolve for you?
So, is this on? Can you guys hear me? No? Wait, now it's better? Yeah, okay. So, I think I came here today at 12 and I've been attending a lot of the sessions. And I think one thing that stood out to me is I felt that a lot of people were talking about networking with a lot of, with a sense of pressure, right? Like, how do we do this? Like, it's so daunting. You talked about entering rooms. You talked about the pressure that you felt, right? And I think, you asked me what's changed over the years, but I think the one thing that has stayed consistent is that for me, networking is not about, the speed dating or the events, but it's actually about meeting people that you like, that you connect with, that you can form like a genuine relationship with. So I think if you think about it like that, it kind of takes the pressure off, right? And to answer the question more specifically, I think for me personally, I have always found my network to be my friends, my family, my co-workers, colleagues, classmates, and that is just the starting point, right? And I feel like it's like an onion. So you peel off the layer. You say, hey, who do you know? So if you need something, you say, hey, who do you know in this space that can help me out with this? And can you make an introduction? And then you can build a relationship with that person and then go further and further and further. And I think a lot of times when we think about these events and these, whatever, it can be daunting, but you can actually just start with the people you know. And then it's like it's much less scary. It's much more of that genuine connection. I think you talked about it as well, right? Like it's about building those meaningful relationships. And even if you're at an event, if you are not able to have a meaningful relationship with someone here, that person's not going to help you in any way, right? So sometimes it's not really a numbers game. And one example that I can share from my life is that, so I have a friend from college, we just knew each other, we were in, some activities together, and many years later, I was thinking of switching from the place I was working at, and she had founded a company in the same space. So I just called her up and I said, hey, are you looking for like a, head of growth? And she had actually been looking for over a year, hadn't found anyone, had shut the role, so she said, yeah, I am. And it just worked out, right? So what happened because of the network is that I managed to get a job which didn't even exist, right? It was not on a job board. She managed to get a hire, right? And the whole thing happened just so organically. So like a lot of times we don't understand the value of the people we already know. And what does that 6 degrees of separation mean? It means you're basically connected to the whole world, right? And I don't know, I'm just saying this because I think that can help take that pressure off. So if you enter a room, find the people you naturally gravitate to. And if it's not today or tomorrow, it might be a few years down the line, right? But and the people you gravitate to, they're interested in the topics you're interested in. So that also helps to kind of self-select into those spaces that you want to be part of or that you want to have conversations in. And so I think that's what's been consistent for me actually, I think is what I would say, is like trying to understand like what do I want to learn about, who do I want to speak to, and who do I genuinely connect with, and then I find that it's much more easier and much less, daunting.
Pallavi, I'm going to come to you. You've been in the human resource space for the longest. Gen Z is sort of is shaking up things at workplaces. Is there any difference in terms of networking or how they build connections, compared to other generations?
So I am not invited to events where Gen Zs are networking because I think because I'm not a Gen Z. I've been to events where I'm talking to Gen Zs and just giving them kind of gyans because I've been to colleges. But there is one thing I really love about this generation, and that is they are not fake. At least according to them, they know what they exactly want, and they are confident enough to talk about it and say it loud. And I think that is essential for networking. So it's one of the most important things I think when we talk about networking, because if you go out and if you try to be someone else, I think that doesn't work. So yeah, I think if they're not partying, if they're not on social media, and if they'll actually be in events like this, I hope and I suppose they'll be better than us.
Tell me honestly, are they more laid back when it comes to networking compared to...
They love sending requests on Instagram, Snapchat, so that is something they understand, but yeah.
But that strategy sometimes works apparently.
Yes,
LinkedIn for sure, yes.
Yes, that works,
I'm not too sure.
So I don't have examples, but yes, in this era of social media, I think they're very good with the algos. They know what to post, how to post. So I think yes, they'll do better than us. This is what I can say.
So physical and virtual networking, two different ball games altogether. Do you have any trick or a suggestion when it comes to virtual networking, or direct DMs are the way to go about it, or the only way to go about it? Kriti, if you would like to take that.
So if it's a very targeted space, then I think direct DMs can work and it's not a bad idea. But I think in that, it's very important to craft a really good message, right? You should explain why you want to touch base with this person. You shouldn't make any typos. You should introduce yourself. And maybe like just give the one thing that will make this person want to respond back to you, right? So I think when we're looking at, like, let's say when you're talking about DMs, I'm assuming it's like a LinkedIn. I don't know if we're doing Instagram DMs, guys, but like
Gen Zs for sure.
Yeah. So I think that's one. The second thing I would say is I've also found that there's a lot of virtual events, and especially post the pandemic, that's become like it's proliferated a lot more. So I think if you attend these virtual events, sometimes I've found that it's they have these breakout rooms and you can talk to smaller people. So it's like actually it's like you're in a room with like 3 other people. You can actually have quite a meaningful conversation. And I've actually attended some of these in the pandemic, which I then ended up sort of getting to know people and founders and things like that. So I think those two. I'm sure there's many more, but maybe I can
I just want to add one thing to this. Social media, direct DMs, they can act as an icebreaker, a good icebreaker if you're sending to the point messages. But in order to create that long-term connections, which networking is about, physical is something is very important. Even if you're talking to someone from like 1 year, the person is solving your problems or maybe helping you build out, eventually you have to meet the person and you have to get things sorted. So I think it's good it's good. It's good as an icebreaker. Like for example, there are 20 people in the room. I can only talk to 20 people, but on LinkedIn there's so many people. I can see my targeted audience there. But in order to create long-term connections, yes, physical meets is something is beautiful and important, I believe.
Rhea, do you have any experience, in terms of virtual networking? Did you LinkedIn DM somebody you wanted to, speak with or had business with?
I think post-COVID, and I have to be honest, I ran to just meet people because I was just fed up of these Zoom meetings and breakout rooms, and I was just done with it. But I think that, that initial reaching out to someone, sure, targeted message, on LinkedIn to connect, but I would follow up with a personal meeting for sure, because I feel like that's really where you can actually build a proper connection. But I think Aabha, do you want to add something? Because I think you're the networking queen.
Funny. Look, so they're important in different ways. Your digital profile today, you've got to have one to be relevant. And I think your digital profile allows you to remain sort of top of mind to people, to remain kind of, to have some kind of recall value, to be visible in terms of, shaping some kind of personal identity online, etc. But I think in terms of connections, that's going to happen in person. I don't think anything can replace that. And I think that even if you are meeting somebody, whether it's a mentor, advisor, sponsor, or just, an associate, but if you actually end up meeting them, even if it's that once or twice a year, you're more likely to get something meaningful out of that catch-up that you'll follow through with, in a few months or a few weeks later, than you are with just DMing someone. Because we all receive like a gazillion DMs, and how often do those translate? There was a time when it did, but I think now the volume is just so much that it's a little harder.
Also, a follow-up question on that. So we have familiar spaces also, like women-led forums, alumni network for women. Should you start from that space and then probably push yourself to grow your network further? What is the approach that needs to be taken if you're starting out, or if you're an aspiring entrepreneur or job seeker?
I think you just need to get out there and meet people. And I think you need to do that across forums that resonate with you. So whether they're to do with your industry, whether they're to do with a like-minded group of people, whether it's to do with a professional network, whether it's to be an interest-based group, but you need to kind of get out there, explore a little bit, and find really where you're resonating. And through that, sometimes then you'll find other sort of avenues of networking as well. So it's never a force fit. It has to be organic, and it has to be something that you genuinely connect with, because only then you'll actually build those relationships.
Rhea, also, I wanted to understand difference. You've spent considerable amount of time in US as well. Networking difference there and in India, did you foresee?
Not the US, but I grew up between Dubai and London, and I've been in India now for about 15 years. I think I was just thinking back on sort of the last 15 years of my life, and when I moved to Delhi, I literally knew nobody. Like, I forget knowing how to set up a business, but I had no idea of the city, where things were. Like, it started from scratch, and personally and professionally. But I think one of the things that we shy away from is using our voice. And I think that we just have to be a little bit more courageous, because I know if I don't ask, I won't get. So no one's going to ask for me, and whether it's getting both our kids into the same school, or setting up a business, or I don't know, anything, basically. It's entirely up to you. And whether you network with other moms, you network professionally, whether it's sport or anything, I do think, and perhaps I wasn't aware of it, but I know it was very hard sort of integrating into the city, because I did feel like there were lack of forums for women, or for women entrepreneurs to kind of be a part of. I know Ladies Who Lead is a great one now, but and it's always so welcoming. But I think, and I think also with forums and networking opportunities, I think you've got to be. Some of them can be very cliquey also. So that's something that is also very hard for when you're someone new to the city or whatever it is to kind of break into, right? So I think that's something that you've got to be aware of, because when you talk about schools for me, I moved to a city where everyone knew each other. There was a college network, there was a school network, there was a history for everyone, right? So I found it very hard to find platforms where I could meet people who were perhaps other expats who'd moved or things like that. So, but it has changed, and I think there are a lot more opportunities to meet people now.
I can speak to networking in the US because I used to live there for a while. I think networking in the US is much more intense than it is over here, which on the one hand I know can sound scary, but the flip side of that, or the positive side, is that you can be a lot more persistent and people don't judge you for it. So nobody, because I did sales also when I lived in the States, and you know, obviously like at that, like when you're doing sales, it's like you just got to go out there and talk to people and be like, could this be a potential client and all of that. We used to, like we were doing South by Southwest and stuff like that. But the thing is, like there, if you're being, like if you really want to go after something, and like even if people are getting annoyed, they're not gonna hold that against you. And in fact, there's a point where they say, hey, like we really like and admire how persistent and how dedicated this person is being, and we, you know, now want to like listen to them. And so somewhere that is one very big difference. Like I think you can't be that persistent in India because people do get put off by beyond point. Yeah, but in the States, I was really surprised at like how much you could push. So yeah, so I think that's just sort of, and maybe this is like specifically in the tech hubs like New York and, you know, San Francisco and stuff like that. Like I don't know about like, you know, rural America or whatever, but I think that's kind of, yeah, my experience. So.
I think we've run out of time. We're going to close the panel with one piece of critical advice for aspiring women entrepreneurs or job seekers or women entrepreneurs themselves. Pallavi, we'll start with you. What is your one piece of advice, virtual or physical networking, specifically for someone who's hesitant to go out, bit of an introvert? What would you advise them?
Okay, so I was an introvert. And I mean, initially, like when I was 24, 25, when I just started my business and I had no clue what's going to happen, I used to go with only one thought, that I am new in the industry, because I was working as an internal auditor before. So from internal auditor, all the finances and all the numbers now to coming into a travel industry, which is completely different. I was like, you know, I'm a newbie. I don't know anything. I'll just go and listen. I'll go and listen. And something that will, you know, touch me or something that I will like, I'll just go and approach. Kya hoga zyada se zyada? Koi mana kar dega? That's like this. So this is, I'll tell a story about my second networking event, which was a travel event, related event. And there was this guy who was talking about his experiences, and he has seen around 30, 35 countries. He has been to all the mountains and beaches in India. And I was impressed by what he was talking, and I really felt he's unapproachable. But then he says that, you know, my most favorite place in the world is Orcha. So for those of you who don't know, Orcha is a very beautiful place in MP, which is just very close, like 10 minutes from my hometown, that is Jhansi. And I was like, पूरी दुनिया घूमी हुई है, ओरछा क्यों अच्छा लग रहा है? मतलब he's been to London, he's been to Paris, etc., etc. And then I just went and asked him, you know, why it's that so. And that's how the conversation started, cut down to like 7 years now. He's my mentor, my biggest supporter. He's just a call away whenever I feel there's a problem, and he's a director at one of the very biggest IT company in India. So I mean, it's like you should not have any pressure. You should go with the thought of taking the knowledge. And one more important thing for me is, and the advice is, I think networking is about giving first. If you'll go and talk to people with an agenda, I think that doesn't work. It is always about what you can bring, what you bring on the table, and what you can give it to people. And yes, I mean, that's how it works for me at least.
How about your piece of advice?
No, I think she put it really well. I think I would just add that I don't think it needs to be such a scary word. I think people have just made, I think there's so many connotations and so many misconceptions with the word networking that, you know, it has to be like it's a bad thing, or you need to be an extrovert, or it's only for X kind of people, or it means you have to be social. It doesn't. You know, I think all people mean is that you have to just create a network of your own. It's called human capital. So it's where you create a bank of human capital for yourself, which is a bank of people, relationships, associates, professional associates, colleagues, you know, former batchmates that you could reach out to at a given point. You know, were you looking for something? Even if it's just to ask for an idea or to share an idea and get some insights, but to really create, you know, that sort of cohort of people that you can count on, and you know, you can also get some insights from as you're building your own journey.
So in addition to what Aabha said, in terms of creating your human capital, I would say share your human capital. I think that's really important because we all sort of benefit from that safe space to share and to learn. So just be open to that.
I think these guys have covered most of it. And so I think I'm going to say that one piece of advice would also be that maybe it's important to reframe rejection, you know, because a lot of times when you send out those DMs or you go talk to someone, that person may not, like there may be 5 other people talking to them and you may not be able to get your point across, or they may not respond, and that's okay. Like if you are talking to 20 people and you have 5 meaningful conversations and 15 are dud, it's fine, right? It's not something to be disheartened by. It's not something to say, oh, I failed and now I can't do this again and I'm just going to crawl back into my hole, right? I think it's very important to take each positive multiplied by 5 and take each negative and divide it, you know, and not let that affect you. So I think especially when it comes to this kind of stuff, like reframe rejection and think of it as like you're planting a seed today and the tree might grow after like 10 years, you know. So don't feel disheartened.
Thank you so much, ladies. Those were wonderful insights. I'm going to close this session with a trick that Kriti taught me. When you're attending a networking session like this, and if there's something particular that really stuck you, you know, in whatever the panelists said, you can always go and approach them and open the chat with, hey, I really like that one point that you made, and then let the conversation flow. Thank you so much, everyone, for being patient, and I hope everybody had some or the other takeaway from the panel. Thank you so much again, ladies. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for an insightful session. Now, before we close this, I would like to call upon stage Shaila Prabhu, Associate Director, TIE Delhi-NCR, to present the speaker mementos. Naina? Thank you. Thank you, everyone.